The House No One Saw. The Hamden, Ohio child rescue case. How do 16 children disappear inside a house that people drove past every day? That is the question at the center of the Hamden, Ohio child rescue case. In July 2026, authorities said they found 16 children and young people, from about 18 months old to 18 years old, inside a rural home in Vinton County. The conditions described by officials were not just poor. They were the kind of conditions that make people ask how the outside world failed to notice. But the most disturbing part of the story may be this. Investigators say they did not arrive because someone reported 16 hidden children. They came for an unrelated investigation. The children were discovered because another door opened. And that single detail turns the case from a tragedy into a mystery. If that warrant had never happened, how much longer would the house have stayed quiet? How many systems can a family avoid before the children inside become nearly invisible? The house sat in Hamden, a small village in southern Ohio, in one of the state's poorer regions. Reports describe a property near a railroad embankment, partly hidden by brush and trees, but still close enough to neighbors that it was not truly isolated. After authorities entered, the exterior became its own haunting image. Boarded windows, police tape, piles of refuse, tires, scattered objects, and signs of a life that had somehow folded inward. Neighbors told reporters they had not seen children there. That is the first unanswered question. Were the children deliberately kept from every window, every yard, every ordinary errand? Or did people see fragments and file them away as nothing unusual? In small towns, privacy can be a shield, but it can also become a curtain. And once that curtain is accepted as normal, almost anything can hide behind it. Authorities said the children spent much of their time in a room roughly 12 feet by 12 feet. That number is easy to hear and hard to imagine. A 12 by 12 room is about the size of a small bedroom. Now imagine 16 children and teenagers living around that space for long stretches of their lives. Reports described human waste, garbage, dangerous bacteria, and areas of the house that were difficult to access because of debris. Some children were reportedly unable to speak. One 18-year-old with developmental disabilities was said to be unable to write her own name. 7 children were hospitalized. Early reports said 2 were flown to trauma centers. These details raise another question. Was this simply neglect that grew worse over time? Or was isolation itself the system? If children are kept from school, doctors, neighbors, and public life, the room is not just a room. It becomes the whole world they are allowed to know. 4 adult relatives were arrested: Gary Siders Jr., Elizabeth Siders, Gary Siders Sr., and Christina Siders. They have been charged with child endangerment and have pleaded not guilty, which matters because the court process is still unfolding. But public curiosity has already moved faster than the case file. Online, people ask whether others must have known. They ask whether extended relatives saw warning signs. They ask why no school, medical office, agency, or neighbor appears to have raised the alarm earlier. Those questions are understandable, but they are not proof of a wider plot. A responsible way to frame it is this: there may not need to be a grand conspiracy for children to vanish from view. Sometimes the conspiracy is smaller and colder. It is paperwork that never gets created, appointments that never happen, moves between towns, adults who do not ask one more question, a family that learns exactly how little contact is required to stay hidden. The missing records may be the most important clue. Officials said the family appeared to avoid medical, educational, and government systems while moving around southern Ohio over the years. The local school district reportedly had no enrollment records for the children. That leads to one of the biggest theories around the case. Not that a shadowy network hid the children, but that the family may have exploited the gaps between institutions. Schools notice absences only if a child is enrolled. Doctors noticed missed care only if a child is a patient. Agencies act on reports only if someone sees enough to report. If a child is born, moved, kept indoors, never brought to class, and rarely taken to a clinic, the safety net may not even know where to stretch. That is the unsettling possibility. The children may have been hidden not behind secret technology or elaborate deception, but behind the simple absence of records. Another theory focuses on the village itself. How could no one notice 16 children? The answer may be less satisfying than people want. Rural poverty can normalize cluttered properties, unreliable transportation, and families keeping to themselves. A messy yard does not automatically mean children are inside, in danger. A quiet house does not automatically mean no one lives there. And neighbors are not investigators. Still, the silence is hard to ignore. 16 children mean food, diapers, laundry, noise, trash, birthdays, illness, growth, and movement. So where were the traces? Were deliveries made at odd times? Did adults shop without the children? Were curtains always drawn? Did the railroad noise cover sound? Did the house become so visually unpleasant that people learned not to look too closely? These are not accusations. They are the questions left behind when a rescue reveals a life hidden in ordinary geography. The most chilling detail may be the unrelated investigation that led police there. Reports connect the search to a separate matter, and court records mention a warrant involving Gary Siders Jr. tied to misdemeanor indecent exposure allegations from May. Authorities have not publicly explained every part of that parallel case, but the timing creates a disturbing what if. What if the unrelated investigation was the only reason anyone crossed the threshold? What if the children were one missed warrant away from remaining unseen? Officials have said the case is not considered human trafficking, and that is important because rumors can outrun facts. But the absence of trafficking does not make the case less mysterious. It shifts the mystery inward. If this was an intra-family situation, then the question becomes how a closed family system maintained control, avoided attention, and kept so many lives outside ordinary public view for so long. So what is the real story of the Hamden house? It may be a child endangerment case. It may be a case study in rural isolation. It may become a warning about missing school records, medical invisibility, and the limits of neighborly awareness. It may reveal more as investigators, doctors, child welfare officials, attorneys, and the court system sort through years of unanswered questions. For now, the children are in state custody, and their recovery deserves privacy. The public is left with the larger mystery. How can 16 young lives exist so close to a road, so close to neighbors, so close to systems meant to protect them, and still remain unseen? Maybe the answer will be one shocking secret, or maybe it will be something more uncomfortable. Not one locked door, but 100 small gaps lining up until an entire childhood could disappear inside them.